We just got video in our newsroom taken at Neis and Alexander. We have News 3 crews scattered all over the valley and our photographers racing around to do their very best to bring you this excellent coverage. This is video that just came in at Neis and Alexander.
That's the U-Haul truck that Steve Krupe was talking about. Oh, there it is. That's the man that tried to jump off his truck and hit his head on the concrete. Now, Steve told us he got reports, and these are unconfirmed, that that man was okay and that he was fished out of the water. And this is the woman that we saw that was eventually hysterical, that laid down on top of her car and was rescued by Swiftwater Rescue volunteers.
You can see in this video that she is in an absolute panic. You can tell from her chest rising and falling quickly that she's already panicking. We've seen a lot of this video from up in Sky 3, but now this is the first chance we're getting to see some of the video that was taken on the ground from News 3 photographers in the field. Steve Krupe was live at the very area that we're talking about. He did manage to interview some of the folks who were involved in that. Steve, we're going to go back out live to you now.
Beth, it was quite a scene out here. Let me show you what it looks like right now. We're still at Gowan and US 95, still a lot of water out there, and you can see a couple vehicles out there. The headlights of the U-Haul truck, that's the one that the gentleman jumped off of, and then a couple more vehicles out there. We had two people airlifted to safety out here, a woman and then a man, and we spoke to that man who was safely rescued from the top of his vehicle. Here's what he had to say for us. It looked like you had just a few inches left before you were gone.
Yeah, it was almost at the top of the car, over the top of the car. It was close. Car in front of me stopped. I had to stop, and then the water came.
His explanation for how he got stuck in the water was interesting. He said when he got out there, he thought it was less than a foot. He thought he could make it through there safely. The problem was traffic had started backing up because there were so many problems at different intersections progressing to the west from US 95. And so he got stuck behind some very slow traffic. As he sat there and waited for traffic to move, the water just kept on moving up higher and higher and higher. At that point, he had nowhere to go. He simply put the vehicle in park, got out, climbed up onto his roof, and he was very lucky that the rescue workers were able to get to him. Fire trucks were not able to get out here because the water was so deep, thus the need for the helicopter. Fortunately, that helicopter was available. The chopper came, rescued a woman, and then rescued that man. He is in good shape. The woman was taken to the hospital. She is just fine. So some very, very lucky motorists out here in this amazing deluge this afternoon. Back to you. This is the videotape. Somebody threw him a rescue line. He was sitting out there on the truck and then jumped, hit his head on the concrete there, and then he actually floated off a ways, but amazingly, he is okay. We saw him walking later on. Then this was one of the women we saw rescued out there. Her car actually started floating away when the floodwaters went up over the hood. You can see the rain coming down there. It was incredibly hard. Those were some of the biggest raindrops I have ever seen. Just to update you on what's going on right now where we are, there is actually a sprinkling once again, but there is a lot of blue sky out here as well. She was in very bad shape there, hyperventilating. She was very, very distressed, but she was airlifted to safety, as was another gentleman later on. Let's come back out now to our live picture. We've still got quite a scene out here at Gowan and US 95, and as you can see around me, a big crowd. People just trying to come out, absorb the information of what's going on, make sure their friends and family are safe. A lot of cars still stuck out there in the mud. There have been people up on the rooftops and looking over the walls here, checking out the scene. Police still have Gowan blocked off. I'll show you the two police cruisers right there that have Gowan blocked off. They're turning traffic around. They're doing the same thing at other intersections all the way down Gowan, Alexander, Cheyenne. And it's a very strange scene out here as people simply wait for the waters to recede. There's mud all over the ground, and a couple blocks from here, that's where it's really bad, where the water and mud has actually entered people's homes. They've got a real mess that they'll be dealing with tonight and well into tomorrow. So that's the scene out here. Back to you. Let me show you some videotape from much earlier on this afternoon. This will give you an idea of how things started before all those rescues occurred. This was the water that had built up just as my photographer and I had arrived roughly around the intersection of Gowan and US 95. This is what we were up against with all those drivers out there, people trying to walk across that. Now that looks deep, but it got about twice that deep just a few minutes later. These people could easily have been swept away, but they were walking away from their cars that they had hopped out of. They abandoned their cars because it just got too dangerous to stay in the cars and keep driving. We took our news vehicle and actually took a turn into a cul-de-sac. This couple right here was sitting inside their car in that cul-de-sac waiting for the waters to recede. Again, people crossing waters that perhaps they shouldn't have when it's that deep, and that is where those people got stuck and the rescues occurred later on. But this was the scene that just kept going on and kept getting worse and worse as those huge raindrops, very, very hard, heavy rain, just kept coming down and down and down. Not for very long. I mean, the heavy downpour lasted perhaps no longer than 90 minutes out here. And since then, we've had a few minor sprinkles. Every now and then another raindrop is coming down, but a lot of blue sky out here, and things are looking good for the rest of the night. So. Well, Dr. Jim, I am at Gowan and US 95. This roadway just reopened to traffic about 10 minutes ago, and the waters have subsided, but this was the scene earlier today of some very scary moments. Several motorists needed to be rescued from their stranded vehicles, that U-Haul driver among them, as well as that gentleman to the right. This woman got out of her car. It was in no position to be moved. She made it to safety, but then the U-Haul driver made his move to higher ground on top of the truck, and then he made a very scary decision to jump off that truck. He slammed his head into that concrete wall there. You'll see it again here. He hits his head, falls backwards, and then perhaps even momentarily loses consciousness as he floats down there. He was later rescued. He is okay. This woman, her car floated away underneath the US 95 underpass there on Gowan. She was quite distraught. She had to be rescued by Metro's search and rescue helicopter. There she is being loaded into the helicopter. And then that other gentleman you saw out there, he was plucked up by the helicopter as well. His name is Bob Goodrich, and he admits that he was stupid for driving into the water, but he says today he was a very lucky man.
Today's my birthday. I'm going to go home and be grateful I can see tomorrow. Make it another day.
It looked like you had just a few inches left before you were gone.
Yeah, it was almost at the top of the car, over the top of the car. It was close. Too close.
Too close indeed. Now, this was the scene just a short time before those rescues when the water was only 5 or 6 inches deep. That's when drivers thought that they could get through. But then, just a few minutes later, that's what things looked like. The waters rose that deep, that quickly. It was very scary, and that water was very, very powerful.
They suit you up, then teach you the rules, because Richard Petty don't teach no fools.
Signing my life away. All these initials mean if I crash, it's not their problem.
Then it's trackside, and those butterflies in your stomach are just starting to churn. After all of the anticipation, soon it'll just be you and the race cars. You might look confident, but the lap times don't lie.
We get all sorts of them out here. We get a lot of guys that come in that think they're going to be real fast. They get out there and they're just nervous. They can't stay between the dots, that sort of stuff.
Harness, headgear, and last-second safety instructions, and your training is complete. Now, I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit scary at first, but trust the driving coaches, and more importantly, trust your race car.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
They put me in the M&M's car. They must know what's on my training table, and perhaps that's why it was such a tight fit getting in. But finally, I'm ready to roll in the 38 car. My first lap, heart pumping, but I was light on the accelerator, only 110 miles an hour. By the end, you're in the groove, you got your groove going. I hit 130 miles an hour, and after 8 laps, the deal is done.
It's absolutely awesome. You just want to go fast. You feel the rumbling. You're just ready to go. You move over to that first turn. You're just going nuts. I love it.
It's hard not to love it. I mean, it's living life on the edge, but in a safe environment. I even found one guy willing to put his own daughter into the program.
I'm going to have my daughter do it. She's 22, and as soon as she has time, I'm going to have her do it because I think she would enjoy it.
Maybe not quite as much fun as I had, but NASCAR returns to NBC next week, and now that I've got the Richard Petty experience, it'll help me watch and understand racing like never before.